Hello, Davis Dragons. My name is Mrs. Bradford. I teach second grade at Davis, and I'll be reading chapters 30 through 34 from the Tale of Despereaux. I downloaded a digital version on my iPad on my Kindle app, and so I will be reading from this, and I will show you pictures as they come along. So chapter 30 is titled To the Dungeon. At the castle, for the first time in her young life, Meg had had enough to eat. And eat she did. She quickly became plump and then plumper still. She grew rounder and rounder and bigger, only her head stayed small. Reader, as the teller of this tale, it is my duty from time to time to utter some hard and rather disagreeable truths. In the spirit of honesty, then, I must inform you that Meg was the tiniest bit lazy. And, too, she was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. That is, she was a bit slow-witted. Because of these shortcomings, Louise was hard-pressed to find a job that Meg Rousseau would effectively perform. In quick succession, Meg failed as a lady-in-waiting. She was caught trying on the gown of a visiting duchess. A seamstress, she sewed the cloak of the riding master to her own frock and ruined both. And as a chambermaid, sent to clean a room, she stood open-mouthed and delighted, admiring the gold walls and floors and tapestries, exclaiming over and over again, "Gore, ain't it pretty? Gore, ain't it something then?" and did no cleaning at all. And while Meg was trying and failing at these many domestic chores, other important things were happening in the castle. The rat, in the dungeon below, was pacing and muttering in the darkness, waiting to take his revenge on the princess. And upstairs in the castle, the princess had met a mouse, and the mouse had fallen in love with her. Will there be consequences? You bet. Just as Meg's inability to perform any job well had its consequences, for finally, as a last resort, Louise sent Meg to the kitchen, where Cook had a reputation for dealing effectively with difficult help. In Cook's kitchen, Meg dropped eggshells in the pound cake batter. She scrubbed the kitchen floor with cooking oil instead of cleanser. She sneezed directly on the king's pork chop moments before it was to be served to him. "Of all the good-for-nothings I have encountered," shouted Cook, "surely you are the worst, the most cauliflower-eared, the good-for-nothingness. There's only one place left for you, the dungeon." "Eh?" said Meg, cupping her hand around her ear. "Eh?" "You are being sent to the dungeon. You are to take the jailer his noonday meal. That will be your duty from now on." Reader, you must know that the mice of the castle feared the dungeon. Must I tell you that the humans feared it too? Certainly it was never far from their thoughts. In the warm months, a foul odor rose out of its dark depths and permeated the whole of the castle. And in the still, cold nights of winter, terrible howls issued from the dark place, as if the castle itself were weeping and moaning. "It's only the wind," the people of the castle assured each other. "Nothing but the wind." So here's a picture, and the caption says, "There's only one place left for you, the dungeon." And so you see Cook there holding a candle over Meg's head, and see how she got kind of plump because she ate so much. She had so much food to eat in the castle. Many a serving girl had been sent to the dungeon bearing the jailer's meal, only to return white-faced and weeping, hands trembling, teeth chattering, insisting that they would never go back. And worse, there were whispered stories of those servant girls who had been given the job of feeding the jailer, who had gone down the stairs and into the dungeon, and who had never been seen or heard from again. Do you believe that this will be Meg's fate? Gore, I hope not. What kind of a story would this be without Meg? "Listen, you cauliflower-eared fool," shouted Cook. "This is what you do. You take the tray down to the dungeon, and you wait for the old man to eat the food, and then you bring the tray back up. Do you think that you can manage that?" "Aye, I reckon so, said Mig. I take the old man the tray, and he eats what's on it, and then I bring the tray back up. Empty it would be then. I bring the tray back up from the deep downs. That's right, said Cook. Seems simple, don't it? But I'm sure you'll find a way to bungle it. Eh? Said Meg. Nothing, said Cook. Good luck to you. You'll be needing it. She watched as Meg descended the dungeon stairs. They were the very same stairs, reader, that the mouse Despereaux had been pushed down the day before. Unlike the mouse, however, Meg had a light. On the tray with the food, there was a single flickering candle to show her the way. She turned on the stairs and looked back at Cook and smiled. That cauliflower-eared good-for-nothing fool, said Cook, shaking her head. What's to become of someone who goes to the dungeon smiling, I ask you? Reader, for the answer to Cook's question, you must read on. So now we're on to chapter 31, and the title is A Song in the Dark. The terrible foul odor of the dungeon did not bother Meg. Perhaps that is because sometimes when Uncle was giving her a when Uncle was giving her a good clout to the ear, he missed his mark and delivered a good clout to Meg's nose instead. This happened often enough that it interrupted the proper working of Meg's olfactory senses, and so it was that the overwhelming stench of despair and hopefulness and evil was not at all discernible to her, and she went happily down the stairs, twisting and turning. Gore, she shouted. It's dark, ain't it? Yes, it is, Meg, she answered herself. But if I was a princess, I would so glittery I would be so glittery light like there wouldn't be a place in the world that was dark to me. At this point, Miggery So broke into a little song that went something like this. I ain't no Princess P, but someday I will be. The pee-ha-hee, someday I will be. Meg, as you can imagine, wasn't much of a singer. More of a bellower, really. But in her little song, there was, to the rightly tuned ear, a certain kind of music. And as Meg went singing down the stairs of the dungeon, there appeared from the shadows a rat wrapped in a cloak of red and wearing a spoon on his head. Yes, yes, whispered the rat. A lovely song, just the song I've been waiting to hear. And Roscuro quietly fell in step behind Miggery So. At the bottom of the stairs, Meg shouted out into the darkness, Gore, it's me, Miggery So. Most calls me Meg, delivering your food. Come and get it, Mr. Deep Downs. There was no response. The dungeon was quiet, but it was not quiet in a good way. It was quiet in an ominous way. It was quiet in the way of small, frightening sounds. There was the snail-like slither of water oozing down the walls, and from around a darkened corner there came the low moan of someone in pain. And then, too, there was a noise of the rats going about their business, their sharp nails hitting the stones of the dungeon, and their long, dark tails dragging behind them through the blood and muck. Reader, if you were standing in the dungeon, you would certainly hear all of these disturbing and ominous sounds. If I was standing in the dungeon, I would hear these sounds. If we were standing in the dungeon, we would hear these sounds, and we would be very frightened. We would cling to each other in our fear. But what did Miggery So hear? That's right, absolutely nothing. And so she was not afraid at all. Not in the least. She held the tray up higher, and the candle shed its weak light on the towering pile of spoons and bowls and kettles. Gore, said Meg. Look at them things. I ain't never imagined there could be so many spoons in the whole wide world. There is more to this world than anyone could imagine, said a booming voice from the darkness. True, true, whispered Roscuro. The old jailer speaks true. Gore, said Meg. Who said that? And she turned in the direction of the jailer's voice. So now we're on to chapter 32 called Beware of the Rats. The candlelight on Meg's tray revealed Gregory limping toward her, the thick rope tied around his ankle, his hands outstretched. "You, Gregory presumes, have brought food for the jailer." "Gore," said Meg. She took a step backward. "Give it here," said Gregory, and he took the tray from Meg and sat down on an overturned kettle that had rolled free from the tower. He balanced the tray on his knees and stared at the covered plate. "Gregory assumes that today, again, there's no soup." "Eh?" said Meg. "Soup!" shouted Gregory. "Illegal!" shouted Meg back. "Most foolish," muttered Gregory, and he lifted the cover off the plate. "Too foolish to be born, a world without soup." He picked up a drumstick and put the whole of it in his mouth and chewed and swallowed. "Here," said Meg, staring hard at him. "You forgot the bones." "Not forgotten, chewed." "Gore," said Meg, staring at Gregory with respect. "You eat the bones? You are most ferocious." Gregory ate another piece of chicken, a wing, bones and all, and then another. Meg watched him admiringly. "Someday," she said, moved suddenly to tell this man her deepest wish, "I will be a princess." At this pronouncement, Chiaroscuro, who was still at Meg's side, did a small, deliberate jig of joy. In the light of the one candle, his dancing shadow was large and fearsome indeed. "Gregory sees you," Gregory said to the rat's shadow. Chiaroscuro ceased his dance. He moved to hide beneath Meg's skirt. "Eh?" shouted Meg. "What's that?" "Nothing," said Gregory. "So you aim to be a princess? Well, everyone has a foolish dream. Gregory, for instance, dreams of a world where soup is legal. And that rat, Gregory is sure, has some foolish dreams too." "If only you knew," whispered Chiaroscuro. "What?" shouted Meg. Gregory said nothing more. Instead, he reached into his pocket and then held his napkin up to his face and sneezed into it once, twice, 3 times. "Bless you," shouted Meg. "Bless you, bless you." "Back to the world of light," Gregory said, and then he balled up the napkin and placed it on the tray. "Gregory is done," he said, and he held the tray out to Meg. "Done, are you? Then the tray goes back upstairs. Cook says it must. You take the tray to the deep downs. You wait for the old man to eat, and then you bring the tray back. Them's my instructions." "Did they instruct you, too, to beware of rats?" "The what?" "The rats." "What about 'em?" "Beware of them," shouted Gregory. "Right," said Meg. "Beware the rats." Chiaroscuro, hidden beneath Meg's skirt, rubbed his front paws together. "Warn her all you like, old man," he whispered. "My hour has arrived. The time is now, and your rope must break. No nibbling this time. Rather a serious chew that will break it in 2. Yes, it is all coming clear. Revenge is at hand." Now we're on to chapter 33. The title is A Rat Who Knows Her Name. Meg had climbed I'm going to start that sentence again. Meg had climbed the dungeon stairs and was preparing to open the door to the kitchen when the rat spoke to her. "May I detain you for a moment?" Meg looked at her left and then to her right. "Down here," said Chiaroscuro. Meg looked at the floor. "Gore," she said. "But you're a rat, ain't you? And didn't the old man just warn me of such? Beware the rats," he said. She held the tray up higher so the light from the candle shone directly on Chiaroscuro and the golden spoon on his head and the blood-red cloak around his neck. "There's no need to panic, none at all," said Chiaroscuro. As he talked, he reached behind his back and, using the handle, he raised the soup spoon off his head, much in the manner of a man lifting his hat off to a lady. "Gore," said Meg, "a rat with manners." "Yes," said Chiaroscuro. "How do you do?" My papa had him some cloth much like yours, Mr. Rat, said Meg. Red like that. He traded me for it. Ah, said Roscuro, and he smiled a large, knowing smile. Ah, did he really? That is a terrible story. A tragic story. Reader, if you will pardon me, we must pause for a moment to consider a great and unusual thing, a portentous thing. That great, unusual, portentous thing is this. Roscuro's voice was pitched perfectly to make its way through the tortuous path of Meg's broken down cauliflower ears. That is to say, dear reader, Miggery So heard perfect and true every single word the rat Roscuro uttered. Isn't that amazing? Here's one more picture, and the caption says, "A rat who knows my name." So you can see Roscuro there, and here's Meg, and here's her cauliflower ear that they talk about. See how it's kind of flowery, kind of bumpy. That's why they call it cauliflower, a cauliflower ear. Okay. Oh, my Kindle stopped on me. There we go. "You have known your share of tragedy," said Roscuro to Meg. "Perhaps it is time for you to make the acquaintance of triumph and glory." "Triumph," said Meg. "Glory?" "Allow me to introduce myself," said Roscuro. "I am Charoscuro. Friends call me Roscuro. And your name is Miggery So. And it is true, is it not, that most people simply call you Mig?" "Ain't that the thing?" shouted Meg. "A rat who knows my name?" "Miss Miggery, my dear, I do not want to appear too forward so early in our acquaintance, but may I inquire, am I right in ascertaining that you have aspirations?" "What do you mean, aspirations?" shouted Meg. Miss Miggery, there's no need to shout. None at all. As you can hear me, so I can hear you. We two are perfectly suited, each to the other. Roscuro smiled again, displaying a mouthful of sharp yellow teeth. "Aspirations, my dear, are those things that would make a serving girl wish to be a princess." "Gore," said Mig. "A princess is exactly what I want to be." "There is, my dear, a way to make that happen. I believe that there is a way to make that dream come true." "You mean that I could be the Princess P?" "Yes, your highness," said Roscuro, and he swept the spoon off his head and bowed deeply at the waist. "Yes, your most royal Princess P." "Gore," said Meg. "May I tell you my plan? May I illustrate for you how we can make your dream of becoming a princess a reality?" "Yes," said Meg. "Yes." "It begins," said Roscuro, "with yours truly, and the chewing of a rope." Meg held the tray with one small candle burning bright, and she listened as the rat went on, speaking directly to the wish in her heart. So passionately did Roscuro speak, so intently did the serving girl listen, that neither noticed as the napkin on the tray moved, nor did they hear the small mouse-like noises of disbelief and outrage that issued from the napkin as Roscuro went on unfolding, step by step, his diabolical plan to bring the princess to darkness. And this says it's the end of the 3rd book. So now we're on to book the 4th, Recalled to the Light. Well, this is the cover of the 4th book, the 4th part of Tale of Despereaux. So we're on to chapter 34. Oh my goodness. Here's the title of chapter 34. "Kill 'em, even if they's already dead." Let's see what this is about. Reader, you did not forget about our small mouse, did you? Back to the light. That was what Gregory whispered to him when he wrapped Despereaux in his napkin and placed him on the tray. And then Meg, after a conversation with Roscuro, carried the tray into the kitchen, and when she saw Cook, she shouted, "It's me, Meggery Snow, back from the deep downs." "Ah, lovely," said Cook. "And ain't we all relieved?" Meg put the tray on the counter. "Here, here," said Cook. "Your duties ain't done. You must clear it." "How's that?" shouted Meg. "You must clear the tray," shouted Cook. She reached over and took hold of the napkin and gave it a good shake, and Despereaux tumbled out of the napkin and landed right directly, plop, in a measuring cup full of oil. "Ack!" said Cook. "A mouse in my kitchen, in my cooking oil, in my measuring cup. You, Meg, kill him directly." Meg bent her head and looked at the mouse slowly sinking to the bottom of the glass cup. "Poor little Missy," she said, and she stuck her hand into the oil and pulled him out by his tail. Despereaux, gasping and coughing and blinking at the bright light, could have wept with joy at his rescue, but he was not given time to cry. "Kill him!" shouted Cook. "Gore," said Meg. "All right." Holding Despereaux by the tail, she went to get the kitchen knife, but the mouse tail covered as it was in oil, was slick and difficult to hold on to, and Meg, in reaching for the knife, loosened her grip, and Despereaux fell to the floor. "Gore," she said. "That killed him for sure." "Kill him, even if he's already dead," shouted the cook. "That's my philosophy with mice. If they're alive, kill them. If they're dead, kill them. That way you can be certain of having yourself a dead mouse, which is the only kind of mouse to have." "That's some good sophisy. That is, kill 'em even if they's already dead." "Hurry, you cauliflower-eared fool," shouted Cook. "Hurry." Despereaux lifted his head from the floor. The afternoon sun was shining through the large kitchen window. He had time to think how miraculous the light was, and then it disappeared, and Meg's face loomed into view. She studied him, breathing through her mouth. "Little Missy," she said, "ain't you got to skedaddle?" Despereaux looked for a long moment into Meg's small, concerned eyes, and then there came a blinding flash and the sound of metal moving through the air as Meg brought the kitchen knife down, down, down. Oh, here is a picture of the knife going down and Despereaux running from it. Oh my goodness. And the caption says, "Gore," shouted Meg. "Missed him." Despereaux felt a very intense pain in his hind corner. He leapt up and into action. Reader, he scurried. He scurried like a professional mouse. He zigged to the left and zagged to the right. "Gore," shouted Meg. "Missed him." "Ain't that a surprise?" said Cook, just as Despereaux scurried under a crack into the pantry door. "I got the little Missy's tail, though," said Meg. She bent over and picked up Despereaux's tail and held it up proudly, displaying it to Cook. "So," shouted Cook, "what good will that do us when the rest of him has disappeared into the pantry?" "I don't know," said Meg, and she braced herself as Cook advanced upon her, intending to give her a good clout to the ear. "I don't know." Friends, that's the end of chapter 34. I hope you enjoyed your time.